The idea was simple, a weekend camping trip in the vast quiet wilderness of Utah. Just me, Billy, and the open sky. We'd planned it for weeks, looking forward to escaping the city, breathing in fresh air, and maybe catching a few fish. We packed my old truck, a trusty Ford F-150, with tents, sleeping bags, a cooler full of snacks and drinks, and enough fishing gear to stock a small tackle shop. The drive out was good. The sun was bright, the music was loud, and the excitement was buzzing between us. We talked about everything and nothing, just enjoying the freedom of the open road. As we got deeper into Utah, the scenery changed from sprawling suburbs to rolling hills, then to towering red rock formations and wide-open deserts. It was beautiful, truly. We found a spot deep in the Fish Lake National Forest, tucked away from the main roads. It was perfect, a clearing by a small, gurgling creek, surrounded by thick trees. We set up our tents, started a fire, and even managed to catch a couple of small trout for dinner. The first night was great. We sat by the fire, talking, laughing, and stargazing. The sky out there was something else, so many stars you felt like you could reach out and touch them. The second night, things started to get weird. It began subtly, with noises. Not the usual sounds of the forest, like crickets chirping or owls hooting. These were different. They were faint at first, just whispers in the wind, like someone was talking far away. Billy and I were sitting by the dying embers of the fire, sipping on some cold drinks, when we both heard it. "Did you hear that?" Billy asked, his brow furrowed. I nodded. Sounded like voices? We both strained our ears, but the sounds faded. We shrugged it off, figuring it was just the wind playing tricks or maybe some other campers nearby, though we hadn't seen anyone else for miles. We kept talking, trying to ignore it, but a strange feeling started to settle in. The air felt heavier, colder, even though the fire was still giving off some warmth. Then it started again, louder this time. A low, guttural growl, like an animal, but not quite. It seemed to come from deeper in the woods, just beyond the reach of our campfire light. What in the world was that? I whispered, my heart starting to thump a little faster. Billy grabbed a sturdy stick from the ground, his eyes scanning the darkness beyond our camp. Sounds like a bear, maybe? No bear I ever heard makes a sound like that, I replied, my voice a little shaky. We both sat frozen, listening. The growl came again, closer this time, followed by a strange, high-pitched wail. It sounded like something in pain, but also malicious. It sent shivers down my spine. We slowly, carefully, moved closer to each other, our backs almost touching. The sounds continued, circling our camp, always just out of sight. It was like something was stalking us, playing with us. We tried to make sense of it, but nothing fit. It wasn't an animal we knew. It wasn't human. After what felt like an eternity, the noises died down. We stayed up for a while longer, listening to the silence, which felt even scarier than the sounds had. Eventually, exhaustion won, and we decided to try and get some sleep. We zipped up our tents tight, not bothering to take off our clothes, just in case. I remember lying there, wide awake, listening to every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation for what we'd heard. I must have drifted off eventually, because the next thing I knew, I was jolted awake by something far more terrifying. My name. Hunter? A voice called out, soft and clear. My blood ran cold. It wasn't Billy's voice. It was Becky's. My wife's voice. I sat bolt upright in my sleeping bag, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Becky?" I whispered, half thinking I was dreaming. Then Billy's tent rustled, and I heard him mumble, "Katie? Is that you?" Katie was Billy's wife. We both unzipped our tents at the same time, peering out into the inky blackness. The campfire was long dead, and the moon was hidden behind thick clouds. The only light was the faint glow of the stars, barely piercing through. "Hunter, what's going on?" Billy whispered, his voice laced with fear. "I don't know, man," I heard Becky. "Me too, Katie." It sounded just like her. And then we heard it again. Louder this time. "Hunter? Are you there?" It was unmistakably Becky's voice, coming from the trees right at the edge of our camp. It sounded distressed, like she was lost. But how could Becky be here? We were hundreds of miles from home. It made no sense. "Becky?" I called out, my voice trembling. "Hunter, honey, I'm scared." "Where are you?" the voice pleaded. It sounded so real, so vulnerable. It pulled at something deep inside me, made me want to run to her. But something held me back. A cold, nagging feeling in my gut. It was too perfect. Too sudden, and the way the sounds had been before, the growls, the wails. This was different, but it felt connected. "Don't go out there, man," Billy hissed, grabbing my arm. "It's not them." "How do you know?" I whispered back, my eyes fixed on the darkness where the voice came from. My heart was torn between the desperate need to help my wife and the chilling dread that something was terribly wrong. Then another voice joined in. "Billy! Baby, please, answer me." It was Katie's voice, just as convincing, just as distressed. Billy froze, his grip on my arm tightening. "Katie," he choked out, almost involuntarily. "Billy, I'm so cold. I can't find my way." The voices were moving now, circling our camp, sometimes overlapping, sometimes separating. They sounded like our wives, but there was an unnatural echo to them, a subtle distortion that sent shivers down my spine. It was like a perfect imitation, but just a little bit off, like a song played slightly out of tune. We stayed huddled in our tents, listening to the agonizing calls. It felt like an eternity. They pleaded, they cried, they begged us to come out. Sometimes they sounded angry, sometimes sad, sometimes even playful. It was a cruel game, designed to break us, to lure us out into the darkness. "They're trying to trick us," I whispered to Billy, my voice barely audible. "It's not them. It can't be." "I know," he said, his voice hoarse. "But it sounds so real." We both knew about the stories, the old Navajo tales of the Skinwalkers. Creatures that could take the form of animals or even people, luring victims to their doom. We joked about them on the drive out, but now, deep in the Utah wilderness, with those terrifying voices calling our names, it wasn't funny anymore. It was real. The voices continued their assault for hours. They knew our names, they knew our wives' names. How? It was impossible. It messed with our heads, played on our deepest fears. We heard other sounds too, sometimes. Faint scratching on the sides of our tents, a soft snuffling outside. We gripped our knives, ready for anything, but we knew it would be useless against whatever this was. We tried to stay calm, to think rationally. We reminded ourselves that our wives were safe at home, hundreds of miles away. This was a trick, a cruel illusion. But the sheer terror of it was overwhelming. The fear of what would happen if we fell for it, if we stepped out of the flimsy protection of our tents, kept us rooted to the spot. As the night wore on, the voices became more desperate, more aggressive. They weren't just calling our names anymore. They were saying things only our wives would know, little inside jokes, pet names, things that were supposed to be private. It was sickening. It made us doubt everything. How could something know these things? Hunter, remember that time we went to the beach, and you got sunburned on your nose? The voice mimicking Becky said, a soft, teasing laugh following it. My breath hitched. Becky had mentioned that just last week. How could it know? Billy, you forgot your anniversary again, didn't you? The Katie voice chuckled, a hint of mock anger in it. Billy let out a whimper. It's not real, he kept muttering over and over again, as if trying to convince himself. We huddled in our tents, not daring to move, our eyes wide with fear. The darkness outside felt like a living thing, pressing in on us, filled with unseen horrors. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig made us jump. The air grew colder, and a strange, sickly sweet smell drifted into our tents, like something decaying mixed with something overwhelmingly floral. It made my stomach churn. It felt like the longest night of our lives. We didn't sleep a wink. We just lay there, listening, praying for the sun to rise. Every minute stretched into an hour, every hour into an eternity. We could feel the thing, whatever it was, circling our tents, its invisible presence a heavy weight in the air. We could almost feel its breath, cold and stale, just outside the thin fabric of our shelters. Finally, after what felt like forever, a faint gray light began to appear on the horizon. The darkest hour was over. As the sky slowly lightened, the voices began to fade. They became softer, more distant, until they were just whispers again, then nothing. The silence that followed was deafening, but it was a welcome silence. We waited, not daring to move, until the first rays of sunlight pierced through the trees, painting the forest in hues of orange and gold. The world outside our tents transformed, from a terrifying, unseen realm to a normal, peaceful forest. The birds started to chirp, and the creek gurgled cheerfully. It was as if the horrors of the night had never happened, except for the lingering dread in our chests and the dark circles under our eyes. Slowly, cautiously, we unzipped our tents. We looked at each other, our faces pale and drawn, but relief washed over us. We had made it. We were alive. Let's get out of here, Billy said, his voice raspy. I nodded, not needing to say a word. We quickly, almost frantically, packed up our camp. We didn't care about leaving things messy, we just wanted to be gone. We shoved everything into the truck, not bothering to fold anything neatly. Our hands trembled as we worked, but we moved with a frantic energy. As I started the engine, I glanced back at the trees, at the shadows that still clung to the deepest parts of the forest. I swore I saw something move, just for a fleeting second, a darker shadow against the already dark trees. But I didn't linger. I put the truck in gear and sped away, leaving the Utah wilderness behind us. We didn't stop until we were hundreds of miles away, back on familiar highways, with the sun bright above us and the sounds of traffic replacing the terrifying whispers of the night. We never talked about it again, not in detail. It was too disturbing, too unbelievable. But every now and then, if one of us heard a strange noise at night, or if our wives called our names from another room, we'd both flinch, and a cold shiver would run down our spines. The memory of that night, and the terrifying voices that called to us from the darkness, would stay with us forever. We learned that some things are better left undisturbed, and some places are best left alone. And that sometimes, the scariest monsters aren't the ones you can see, but the ones that can sound exactly like the people you love.
But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, maybe you'll get sick of being